Hello and greetings. This is Extra Hours, the evening session of Office Hours, part of the global network. Got a couple shows during the week now, and this is the one where we created it so that people from around the world that didn't want to get up early in the morning or had an alternative time that didn't work out for them can now ask their questions here. So you can jump into Mukana and ask those questions. We've got an all-star cast here, and we'll go ahead and introduce Mr. Sky Gleason. Sky, where are you in from?
Well, I'm all the way down 8 miles from you, actually. I'm in Edmonds, Washington, of the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And the miracle is the sun is shining. Go figure. 80 degrees. Never have it.
It is toasty out there today. We rarely get one of these days, and you're not too far, so you got the exact same weather. I'm looking outside, and it is gorgeous. How about over there on the other side of the country, Tony? What are you looking at? Is it already dark there?
Greetings, Tony Mobley here. We actually had a fantastic day up until about 7 p.m. my time. It stormed like crazy, and it just now stopped.
Oh, wow. And then you had a visitor, special guest from the Office Hours community today helping you out?
I did. He came yesterday and spent the night and did some tweaking this evening and this early afternoon. And what you see is a result of all of his hard work.
I love it. Looks very natural. It's looking better and better.
Everything got tweaked. So
just a little. So you didn't add any lights. It's just moving them around and it's kind of seasoned to taste.
The lights are the same, with the exception of the lights over where the sign is and the Jeffrey Powers creation of the Conversation with Tony Mobley logo.
Wow.
We have little lights over there.
And I was commenting in the morning show about what a great community we have here, where somebody from the community comes and pays a house visit to move a few things around to help somebody out and lend a hand to plus them up a little. And it's looking great. It's looking better and better.
Yes, we do have people that do house calls, and I'm so thankful. He worked very hard here, and we had Mickey on the line, and he was making suggestions, and so it was fantastic.
Very cool. And then we got Carl all the way down under at 10 something in the morning.
That's right. It's about 10:30 in the morning here. Today was one of the coldest days we've had all year. So it got down to 1 degree. So it's at 33 in freedom units. So yeah, so that was around 6 o'clock this morning. Not the absolute. We got down to about -1 back in May. So, but it's one of the coldest mornings we've had in a long time.
Yeah. Are you wearing a sweater?
I'm wearing a jacket and 2 t-shirts.
Here I am, like my air conditioning's barely keeping up, and as I look at you,
it's about 5-6 degrees at the moment. So
wow.
Which would be it's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment here.
That's funny because heat rises, so the downstairs is like 65 degrees down there because I've got the air conditioner just cranked, and then upstairs the heat's been trapped, and so it's roasting up here but cold downstairs. Funny. Oh, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. And Carl's gonna be our reader today. And we got Alex coming in from down south.
We have the old-fashioned exhaust fans. I don't know if in our house I've got an exhaust fan that's by the chimney that you turn on in the evening, and it pulls all the hot air out of the house. And so and I'd never seen one before until I bought this house. So I was like, there's these huge vents at the top of the chimney that are designed to pull the heat out. So we open up the doors, and then I have a fan that pushes some air in, and then I pull it out from the top, push cold air in from the front. Because the nice thing about for us is that it gets cold every night, almost every night. There's like 3 nights in a year that it doesn't get below 65 degrees outside, and we don't enjoy those nights. So but outside of that, it's typically 45 to 55 every night where we live. And so if you pull a bunch of air in at night, when we get up in the morning, it's like 60 degrees, 60, 65 degrees in the house. And then we just let it slowly warm up. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I want to put one of those up in our attic because that's
Yeah.
where it's just roasted. It just traps all that stuff up there. And I put one of those when I bought a building a couple of years ago, and we stuck one up in the attic. And what a dramatic difference that
does.
made! And
It's
it was on a
huge.
timer, and it would just open up or by temperature.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, we've got a few questions already starting to pile up, but for those of you that are in the Makana chat already, you can certainly add more if you have any burning questions. We don't answer the QR questions in this show, but if there are any ones that you have after this show, keep in mind that if you go to the Office Hours .global website and type in Mukana in the top, there's actually a page that has all the Mukana links desktop full for each of the shows, and you can ask in there. Carl, you want to kick us off with this first question that we've got?
So the first question is from Alex Lindsay from Nevada, California. I did some recording over the weekend. Can I show a few photos?
Is that in the form of a question? Is there a question mark at the end?
I think I said I can show a few photos.
I could show Mukana's questions in the form of a question.
Yeah,
it's like Jeopardy,
exactly.
but different.
How did I do it? Yeah. So, so we had a couple of things. So we did. I'm going to show them out of order, but well, kind of out of order. We did a live stream on Saturday, another live stream from Airship Laboratories, and then I went to a concert on Friday night with my daughter, and there was some interesting things to look at. So this is the basic layout for what we had here. So if you this is the studio, and the studio is pretty long as you go through it, and we had two people playing. This is Perhapsy is the name of the band, and it was Derek and Archer, and you'll see them in a second. But we started to figure it out. Moving those, we couldn't decide whether we wanted to keep we ended up leaving the drums. They weren't using them, but they kind of had nice geometry in the background. So we started putting these in, and this is kind of where you can see us starting to set up here. As we go back, we've got, this is the beginning of the setup. The other camera's coming in here as we kind of move forward. And I think that this is when we're a little bit more set up. Now, there was a couple things here that were kind of interesting for us, and we had, for the main cameras, we had these monitors that we have for the Blackmagic cameras, which makes it just a lot easier to look at everything than having it makes a big difference. I used to think, oh, do I really need to bring the monitors and go through the process of putting them together? And the answer is yes. It makes a big, because you can also move them around a lot and get things where they were. Now, we started testing this. We ended up putting another one over here. I don't have a picture of that, but we put another one on the other side. We're going to do a lot more with the lighting. I think one of the things we're thinking about doing is building doing a goalpost here and then hanging lights down through here. So then it'll get a lot more. We'll have a lot more to work with, as we go forward. But we weren't ready for that this time. So we're kind of slowly in the space. We're kind of learning what we want to do with the space and how we want to make it work. There is if you look at Makana, I don't think we've published the. I don't think that we published it, made a public posting for it, but I think that we have in Makana. You can get to the link because we posted it up there. But I'll show you the. Let me pull this out of screen. This is kind of what it ended up starting to look like. This is the raw version. We're going to, of course, do some additional editing. So you can kind of see that we had a close up here. We decided that what we really want, this is a 100 to 400 all the way open. So what we realized is what we really want is a 70 to 200 for the two side cameras, because when they're all the way wide, and this was a middle camera. And so basically, if you think about it from above, we had the two of them like this, and they were kind of turned at an angle because that makes sense. It made sense for the camera that I had over here to go this way, and it also made it easier to do a single from the camera on him. So those two cameras drove pushing Archer back a little bit, and then this camera here was defined by the axis between the two of them here, because what that did is it created the same focal plane for this wide shot, so that I could have them both in focus. So if when we had them a little over here, one was in focus and one was out, but by creating a perpendicular line from that, we were able to make that work. And then we had another wide one back here. That's mostly used for some experiments that we're doing. So anyway, so that's how we kind of set up those cameras there. And so here you can see the different shots. One of the things I kind of liked was this kind of single. It's really a single on the accompanist here, Archer, where he's a little out of focus, and I have Archer here getting in focus, so it's kind of further back in a way, which I thought was kind of an interesting. It did some close-ups as well, but that is so when Derek was up in the foreground there, and here you can see some more of the kind of the close-up shots. And so we're going to go back and re-edit a lot of these, do some color work on it. We're going to get some final mixes, and we'll put more up. But that's what we put together there, and that was on Saturday, and that was a very small team. That was just myself. So Elad, who is part of Swell, and they're there at Airship, did the audio, and then Malachi, my son, and I were the camera operators, and then Max was Max Hunt was the TD, so he was cutting the show. So it was kind of it was a fun little experience there. And then the other thing that I did on Friday was that we went to a new space that I hadn't been at before, and that was here. This is called Art Boutique. So you can see it's got a little tiki vibe to it. Cool space. And one of the things that's interesting that I thought it'd be interesting to talk about here is when you're looking for live spaces to shoot in, what makes them a good live space. So there's certain things that when I'm shooting, I'm looking for. So what I like about this from a live perspective is that the stage is small. That's good for me. It comes out like this, and it has gaps over here. For me, that means I can put stands up here. So this is the lens that I look at stages, because I immediately reached out to them today going, hey, have you ever thought about live streaming? Because you got a great space, but the reason for that is that there's enough room. It's not right up against the wall. It's not a super deep. This is probably only 8 or 10 feet deep. I'd love to have it be a little deeper than that, but it's not the end of the world. It's got a good vibe. It's got all these album covers on the back, so it's not just plain. It's got something that's there. It has all this infrastructure up here that we can take advantage of if we want to put lights or anything else, add any more light. We already have some gear up there. Again, I can box up cameras here if I wanted to. It's small enough that if we wanted to do a shoot without an audience, I can very easily frame up stuff here, and I've got this nice little stage that everyone's kind of compact. And again, because it's square, a lot of times you get these small venues, they've got some kind of like bar over here or something, like it's off in some weird corner, and this is really centered up in the space.
So Alex, on this venue, you're pushing the envelope as far as you want to do these to look at the future of immersive, correct? So right now you're shooting with traditional cameras, but you want to get into...
I'm looking at all the things. So when I look at the streaming, so this could be a multicam shoot. It could be an immersive shoot. I'm looking for spaces like this to do an immersive shoot. So that is being able to, the immersive side of this is that if I put a camera right here, I'm going to get a ton of geometry up here. There's interesting things to see around the edges, including like a little penguin. I don't know where the penguin came from. So anyway, but there's interesting things to look at, as well as having a reasonably good space. One of the things you think about with immersive is you got a camera, and we've talked about this in the past, is the area that you want someone to be in is typically about 8 feet to 16 feet, and you want it to be about, at about not quite a 90, but about 120 degrees. Out of that 180 degrees is what you want to have the whole space exist inside of. And so that's because this is the area where everyone looks the most 3D. Without, and if you go more than the 120 over here, the issue you get into is you start seeing the black line, and it kind of takes you out of it. So you want to kind of so that's what you're looking for there. Here you can see kind of a wider shot. So they've got a little bar back here, which I thought was cool, but a big open space and something that could actually be used. Here's there's the penguin, but you can see this nice little space here with some areas that I can put over on either side. So I can get cameras up there if I want to do multi-camera. Here's one of the bands playing here. So you can kind of see this is the second band that was playing. It was good. This is funny that look at this guy here. He's all kind of school-like, but over time he kind of he kept on getting this until he was a little bit more rock and roll.
Is it AC/DC?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And he really he was good.
He blossomed.
Yeah, he was really good. And this was Isha, who was the person that we came to actually see. One thing, by the way, I shot this with the 0.5 lens. One of the things when you're shooting this kind of concert stuff, which I think it turned out pretty well, is that there's in that square, when you're looking at it, you got to put the person in that square. Like when you're shooting that wide lens, the closer they get, and it's really smaller than that. It's really like this square. If you can get the person's head into that square, it means it won't stretch very much, so the closer they are to the center. So you can do these kind of really cool wide shots with 0.5, and you'll notice that if you get too high, if their head starts too high or too far over here, they get all stretched out. So one of the things about shooting is really picking that center area and grabbing onto it, and you can get this really kind of dramatic shot that'd be hard to get otherwise.
So moving forward, where do you see this helping our community, for those that are watching right now and going, what's Alex doing? What are we going to see in 6 months? What are we going to see in a year? Why is he doing all this?
So it's a great question. One of the things about it is there's a couple problems that a bunch of industries are all having at the same time. But one of the things is that these smaller venues and studios, recording studios, are just hurting. And especially the recording studios, there's not much money in having a recording studio. Almost every recording studio now is either just barely catching on or owned by someone that's really wealthy that just wants to be in the music industry. Yeah. And then people build their own little studios at home. You look at Billie Eilish. The albums are all done at home. So that's the challenge. And you have the studios that I think are a great place to do a live stream. I just think that it's a cool place to stream, and I think that there's a future there for studios to do this, and I also think that there's this great opportunity. Then you have all these artists; they have to figure out how do they engage their audience, how do they scale that connection, whether it's theaters, which is something I'm working on, obviously, but also just live streams, immersive, all these things. How do we get those artists out there to their fans? And so anyway, this is my idea is what I've been working on for a very long time is how do we make that possible? At the same time, we have a lot of folks in office hours that we could be doing a lot of these kinds of things. We could be, and learning how to do this live stuff. You get really good at doing live concerts, you're going to be good at doing a lot of other things. As guys, it's a demanding, there's a lot of moving parts. It's not like working on a TV show where, you got a couple shots. It's hot, there's things moving, there's lights, there's people, there's all kinds of things. And so, this is a great way to learn trial by fire, to learn how to do it. And I have a friend of mine, Marcia Kerrigan, who people here have heard her call shows in the past here, and I just talked to her today, and she's in, so she's ready to start. When we're ready, she's not going to be at the next one, but after that, she'll start to join us. And I think that being a camera operator and listening to her call the show and following along is like a master's course in how to do this. She's done literally thousands of shows, concerts. And so she'll, and if you're the camera operator, we saw folks that have never done a camera shoot a show that you would totally think was finished by just having the right director guiding them. And she's totally fine. It's one of the few directors that's that good that is totally fine with people learning. And she's going to teach you how to do it and teach you how to go. And she's not going to yell at you. She might yell at you a little, but she's going to.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah, but there's a patience there that and the fact that she has to describe what to do to an operator that doesn't know how to do it is a huge learning opportunity. If she works with really high-end camera operators, you'll never hear that conversation because she'll just say, do a move up from whatever, and you'll kind of see that, but she's going to describe it to them and kind of have them do what she wants to do. And so she's got a 1ME panel that she has at her house, and we're going to get it all set up so that over the next month, we're going to get it all set up so she can actually cut a show on one of our Blackmagic switchers with a VPN and everything else, so that she just logs in and starts calling the show, looking at it over Zoom and cutting the show.
Yeah,
for us, the learning experiences
of being able to record something like that, put all the ISOs in Zoom, push it back out, and then put Marcia's or whoever the director is, the TD, on maybe a
record the comms.
Yeah, record the comms, but ancillary, where you could pull it down from like a not captions, but a transcription or something. So instead of English or Spanish, it'll say comms, and then you pull that down, and you could listen to it. So any kid in a middle school even could just log into the Zoom meeting with Memo Live, with vMix, with Viz, Ecamm, whatever, reach in and listen to Marcia and just cut that show. So,
well, one of the things we're already talking about is for the live shows when she starts to do it, we are looking at using Zoom and pumping the live show itself into Zoom, so that in the actual live show, multiple people could cut the show. Like the feeds we'll make the feeds available for people to do it. That's what that's kind of
just
the
like what we're
direction
doing
that we're going
in this show. And earlier today, I know you sent out a Discord blast, and I went in there and watched some of the Memo Live build, and some of the stuff that they were doing. I was like, wow, those little Mac Mini M4s are shockingly powerful. So they built up an 8-up show. They pushed it out, recorded it in 4K, and pushed it out to YouTube in 4K, all on one $500 computer. I was like, man, just a few years ago, I used to sell clear, they call them basically $4,000 machines. The Clearcasters, $4,000 to do with that machine, just to push out a stream, not to ingest. It's crazy how the technology changed so fast.
I think that there's a place. I haven't seen anybody do it, but I think that there's a place for someone to build an encoding piece of some encoding software that they sell for $20 or whatever, that just says, give me the video and I'll encode it. Like, it turns it into an appliance. Like, it just takes over the computer, and just because it's at $600, that thing can stream 4K 120 right now. If you have something that'll deliver it 4K 120, it can stream it, which is kind of incredible. And it's but the idea is that I would buy that as just an encoder, to do it. And so anyway, so I think but the goal here is always, I have a larger goal of doing more and more interactive, where we're doing a lot. This is a concert, and we have a way, we're kind of moving down that path, because I think there's a bunch of opportunities there. But then you have the concerts. You also have whether it's a corporate show or a TV show or sports or whatever. We have other TDs. Nate Hill has been in our shows before, cutting a variety of different things. So the idea is that there can be a bunch of different kinds of shows that we do, and have you be able to listen to it, cut along, do those things. And I think that a lot of people would learn
Show,
quickly.
we had Nate cutting remotely,
and you can listen to
him.
And then the idea is the TD comes afterwards. So after Mad in the Kitchen, we had we would all get together after the show and have conversations.
There was like
about
150 people watching the behind the scenes, and there was like 100 watching the show on YouTube. But then there was 150
I was trying to explain to someone. I was trying to explain, because they were like, I don't understand the whole behind the scenes thing. I was like, you got to get. Eventually what we're probably going to do, we're going to do a couple tests, and then eventually, we're going to have people chip in so that we can start to, pay people to do this, and start to pay for the spaces, start to buy, hire the bands. And the more people watch the behind the scenes, I was like, that's what people are going to come and watch, is the behind the scenes. And we'll end up with some great footage, and the band will get to walk away with some great footage, and we're going to be slowly figuring out a business model for the studio and all that stuff. But if we can at least cover some of the hard costs, right now I'd be happy to cover the catering. So
which is Subway sandwich, right?
Yeah, there's a I don't know what it's called. It's like it's not quite Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's like a different chicken thing. It's right next to it's like 5 minutes from where the studio is, and it's right next to Halal King. And so between the two of them, there's chicken, and it's like Kentucky Fried Chicken, but better. And that's been pretty much what the crew gets, because that's a fast run. And so, but yeah, so we're hoping to.
It's not Costco pizza.
Yeah, for sure.
It is not. We did get Little Caesars, and I forgot how much I dislike Little Caesars. And also I got into, this is not a regular, I got into putting one of those sugar monitors, glucose monitors on my arm. And it just changes everything about how you eat. like you just, because you see the spike and you're like, oh, I'll never eat that again. It's, and so there's a whole lot of, I'm never eating that again, that goes through my head every time I eat something. I go back and look at, because you put in, like, you see it start to go, and you put in, like, this is what I ate. And then every time you see a hill, you just go, never, 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 all the way down the hill. And You slowly even those peaks out. So, and it's not because I'm diabetic. It's just I'm curious. So I got one. You can order them now on Amazon. So I ordered one, put it in the back of my arm. Anyway, so we're not going to have a lot of pizza. For everybody else, I will, but not for me.
Next question. On that note.
Next question is from Paul Valhus from Austin, Texas. Is it worth getting? He's talking about, is the $540 Feelworld L4 10.1-inch touchscreen video switcher? He's got a link to the product.
Sky, go ahead.
Well, I have had this manufacturer's smaller monitors before, and while it was not as robust, it was also not $3,000. And again, I've had a smaller touchscreen in the past, and they do seem to be a little more fragile, and you need to be a little more protective of them. But again, these kind of products are some kind of almost disposable in some ways, because we used to have these for $10,000 or $3,000, and now to have a $539 version, I would want to see the color iterations of it, how much control you have. But if you can run 4 different cameras into it, it feels like a very valuable tool for you, especially out in the field if you can throw batteries onto it.
Yeah, thanks for that. It seems like, what kind of shows are you doing? Is it like a simple house of worship where they're doing volunteer work and it's very straightforward? And of course, Blackmagic started this whole revolution, and even people like Rode are jumping on the bandwagon. Even today, I got emailed this one here, which is for $350 more, called the Mini Edge SDI. It would rival that. If you're looking at something like that, this one has the 4 HDMIs, it's got USB, it's got NDI, plus it's got SDI on the side. So if you're looking at that, look at one called the RGB Link Mini Edge SDI with 10 inputs. I mean, it's one of those things where you go, do I want to stick with the major players, or do I want to take a chance? If you get something like this on Amazon, you could always return it. You just beat up on it and see if it does what you need it to do. But I myself like the bigger players. In fact, we were just talking about it. The $500 Mac Mini with some software might be a better choice depending on how you get your ins and outs. But see what Carl has to say about this.
Well, I think this kind of goes back to the last thing we were just talking about. I think this would be great in education for teaching people how to do switching, because it's an all-in-one. Obviously an ATEM Mini Pro, $300 plus a computer monitor, $200, let's say, that can support 30 hertz. That's great, but then you've got to do a bit of a setup. This, you can just literally pull it out of box or have it in a Pelican case, whatever, and you can actually start teaching people how to do a full camera shoot. Excellent for like house of worship for volunteers. And rather than having one person do it, everyone watching that one person, you can buy like 4 of these. And then during show day, they can either become backups or they become upstream routers. So they can simply become a router during the day. On the day, you can actually just set them up as routers. Rather than actually having them switch, they can be feeding into maybe a 1 or 2 ME Blackmagic or whatever switch you want downstream. But I think these are an excellent teaching tool at that price. Around the $500 price is a really good price for teaching. And I think a lot of high school sports, house of worship, that kind of size, that kind of budget, you could actually have 4 of these and teach 4 people at the same time, rather than teaching one person on the switcher and having 3 people watch, let's say. That's kind of the way I'm thinking. Plus, this looks like it has pretty cool features for that price as well.
Now I was going to grab it right here next to me. I have a 10-inch Feelworld monitor that's been on for years. So the quality, as much as you could knock some of this stuff, this model from a 10-inch monitor from Feelworld I've had on for years, and it has held up. So it is higher quality than, depending on how they built that model and where they got the panels from, because a lot of the stuff is OEM'd. Let's see, Alex.
Yeah, I have a hard time getting past having the ecosystem, the whole ecosystem, and the scalability of it. So for me, it would be hard to have something that's all in one that doesn't tie into all the other Blackmagic stuff that I have, or where I might want to go. When I train, people, I want them to use the little ATEM minis, because when I switch them from an ATEM mini to a 1ME or a 2ME or a 4ME, it's all the same software, and it just keeps scaling up, and you keep on using something. There's just more things, but you don't have to relearn anything. And so I have a hard time, because for me, it's all pipelines, how does this fit into a larger pipeline? And for all of the OC and the Feelworld and the RGB link, they all kind of fit into their own little pipeline. They're in their own ecosystem that doesn't really connect to everything else that I'm doing, and that makes it a little bit more. For me, it would be hard for me to invest in.
On that note, now that you say that, there has been times where I've had several people open up just the ATEM software control on another touchscreen computer, and they could be my backup. Like if I'm at the panel and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go to the restroom because it's a long show, can you just hit cut? Basically, that's all you have to do is just hit cut.
we've had events. We had an event where we just didn't. We didn't have more table space for our graphics team, and so we left them at the office, which was about 30 miles north of Moscone in San Rafael, and they were at the office on comms, and they had the back end of the switcher, and anytime between every session when all the graphics needed to be uploaded that were updated that were in the media pool, they just did it all remotely. And it was the same as them being there.
There was VPN, so they were
VPN'd in. Yeah, because we for Pixel Core we used all Meraki, so there was everything that left the office was, if it had an IP, we were connected to it. So yes, they just simply put it in as if it was, and they can. And again, when we're talking about with these concerts, we're going to have Marcia is going to be in Omaha, Nebraska, and we're going to be in Richmond, California. And she's just going to be watching over Zoom and hitting a hardware switcher, and it's going to be running. Excuse me, running that far in. That's hard to do with little ones.
So yeah, that's the thing when you're looking at that entire ecosystem, because what dawned on me is also we use a lot of Companion, and a lot of those buttons for any of the major providers, they're going to wind up in Companion, the AJAs, the Blackmagics, whereas you start to stray off the path, and even Magewell, Magewell Director is another one I'd be looking at for this form factor and this price point. They've just gotten into Companion. So you got to realize there's more time savings than saving a couple $100 here that may eat you alive later down the road, because you can't do these other things that other people built in the community to make your life easier in production. Sky, go ahead.
Well, again, the conversation inspired me because Carl's point about professional equipment, Alex's point about heavy iron, we are still using the HDMI plug-in equipment that we bought 5 years ago at our house of worship, because I brought the hammer down. I said, this is not even prosumer gear. This is consumer gear. You got to be nice to it, or it'll die in a minute. And we've got one little HDMI cable that is kind of flaky on one of the cameras, but otherwise 5 years later, because I beat it in with love, that they had to take care of it. It wasn't pro equipment with nice knobs to hang onto things, because HDMI is not a pro gear, and it's just, you got to be gentle with it. And this is where USB and USB-C are even worse, but that's some of the tools that we're working with now. So you got to just have kid gloves.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people in this ATEM group that I run on Facebook build these convenience panels, so that if they are plugging in and plugging out, that they're beating on that convenience panel, and you could get these things at Redco and custom build them however you want, 4 HDMIs, or maybe you got some kind of converter in there, or XLR or something.
We build everything we can possibly build into a convenience panel. We almost never on site want to be touching the back of our actual hardware. Like, usually there's something very wrong if we're reaching in to grab onto anything that's any of our hardware. It's always going, even if it's only going 3 inches. We just don't want people to, a lot of heavy hands, people in a rush. I'd rather them destroy one piece of a convenience panel, because with a lot of the hardware, especially like Blackmagic, if you break one of those things, there's no RMA for that. They don't have a way to fix that. So this just has one less input. So you really have to kind of take that into account.
For sure. Thanks. Let's move on to the next question.
So next question is coming in from Sky Gleason in Seattle, Washington. Been exploring creating 30-second spec spot in a sequence of the new AI tools. All that done in Google Vio 3 flow.
Tell us more, Sky.
Put my hand. Alex, you inspired me with your weekend warrior stuff, and I've been spending the last 4 days being inspired with what can you do in Midjourney, in Runway AI, in Sono Music, and again, so you take your limitations and you turn that into the material you want to edit, and then I put it all together in Premiere, which is my current tool of choice. However, I'm finding this Google VIO3 inside of Flow. It could do the whole 4 days worth of work in combination in one tool at $250. Now, all of these other ones are, the lip sync is one component. The music creation is one component. The animation is one component in Midjourney now, not through Discord on its own website.
Now, what are you using for lip sync?
I used Runway AI, and it took it from a still and worked it really nicely and gave me some animation as well. I tried.
Is it doing that from singing or from speaking?
Speaking only, one short sentence. But I am in my prompting. Midjourney's getting my. They haven't gotten the big money yet, but they did get they bumped me up to one month expense. And now I get you've exceeded your limit. For $8, you can have another hour of playtime. It's like, for $8, here, take my money. I mean, it's parking money at that point. So it's a nice incremental thing versus the Google thing is like, no, you're investing in the family. You're marrying this thing. So that was my. I hope to have a 30-second thing to show. I could show you. Can I share screen?
I don't know if we're set up to share screen. The backend might have to let us know in chatter. No, it says
no.
Let us know ahead of time, and we'll
that's fine, and that's okay. And I don't. But I looked at some of my sets, and we're not having 12 fingers on a hand. I see why a lot of the demos are using, creatures and sketches and things like that. But man, the people from a distance in a rack focus of a thing, we're getting there. And I thought, even to experiment, that's a $20,000 toy experiment that I would have, as Alex, and the time and energy and the sandwich budget or the pizza bill.
Well, and the thing is that the what I find it really good for is pitches, ideas or brainstorming. Like, I'm not worried about putting an end product out, although I am trying to do one right now just for fun, not for something I do. I haven't used AI for any clients when it comes to an end product. I know people that are, but that's not right now. What I'm focused on is, like, I want to show you something, and the closer I can get to what I want it to be, the more likely someone's going to go, oh, I see it now. I see the vision that you had. And big companies, big showrunners have the money to have a huge staff to put these things together, and I don't need that now. I can put that together as a pitch. Like, here's a 30-second. Like, there's a music video that I want to do for a band, and they haven't done the music video yet. And so my idea is to just do an AI version of it. Like, it's not going to look exactly the way it's going to look.
Well, and that's where you can say, do it in pencil sketch. And so you know it's a concept, it's a napkin idea, but that's where I accidentally stumbled onto Real Life Humans, and it's like, oh man, we're getting really close.
Well, and you can get to the point now where you kind of sketch ideas out, and then you put it in there and say, make this realistic, and then boom, it's
well. And the
realistic.
Sequence is, I start with Claude, and I say, give me a thing, and here's a concept, and it really is down to just the idea, but you have to direct it. And this is where the experience that we have, it got to a point where I said, I need a microphone, and it gave me this weird, funky, experience. And I thought, give me an SM58. Bam.
That's exactly
it gave me an SM58. So it's like, stuff, you train it, you're training, just like we talked about earlier, the training component. That's what we're doing inside of these new tools.
What a world we're living in, man. I almost wish that we had in after hours a group that would come together and pull together some money to create some of these things. It's like, all right, what do you want to make? All right, everybody throw in $20 and let's make it.
What inspired me was this guy that on the NBA last week on ABC, he had a commercial that it was for a betting thing. But you go to his website, and he said, yeah, this spot took me 2 days using this Google component, Google tool, and he's going to create a studio around that. Come on and jump in the pool and join me. And the thing is, he said, and the spot before me on ABC was $400,000, and the spot after me was $400,000, and here I am in the middle. It's like, I don't know what, he didn't say what he charged them for it, but it wasn't $400,000. And yeah, and then he goes to his website and says, and here's the recipe. I'm like, what? But it, again, after the punchline, and Alex, again, I think of your mantra all the time: iterate, 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 iterate.
Dominate.
Exactly. Iterate and dominate. Exactly.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question.
Next question is from Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. Have you ever rebuilt a system from scratch and then discovered tons of ways that your workflow was inefficient, illuminating yet frustrating in a good way?
Oh man, I know where this is coming from, because earlier today when the Memo Live thing came about, I was hearing Oliver give a few tips, and it's nothing like having the grandmaster who wrote the software say, hey, there might be a little different way to do that. But yeah, Carl, go ahead and take it away.
So I'll give you two quick examples. One is my photo editing workflow. So I edit thousands of photos a week. So pretty much the majority of my time as a photographer is actually editing, not taking photos. And that's true for most photographers, of course. So I have figured out over the last decade, I've figured out a system where I am, one, selecting which photos to edit, because the last thing you want to do is be going through, because I'm shooting 50 megapixel. They take a while to load no matter what computer you have, because it's 50 megapixel. It's more to do with the graphics card and reading the RAW, transferring the RAW to a bitmap so you can edit it. So it doesn't matter how fast your computer is, that's going to take time regardless. So every time you pull up a photo, you have to wait a few seconds, and that few seconds takes time. And if I don't want to edit it, then it adds up. So I've found a way of going through quickly. So essentially just favoriting the photographs that I am going to edit. So I'll go through 2,000, I'll come out with 1,500 that I'm actually going to edit. And then, so that's the first pass. And then the second pass is actually the editing. I do that in the same software. So I use a Canon Professional software, which is, there's a learning curve to that. It's not simple. It's not meant to be simple, but it's very deep in what it can do. Adobe doesn't make cameras. This is one of the issues. I might go into that, but Adobe doesn't make cameras. A lot of camera manufacturers are now creating pro high-end raw editing software. Some have been doing it for a long time, like Canon. Nikon's been 5 years. Sony's been about 3 years doing theirs now. Anyway, so then once I get to the end of that, I've edited all my photographs, but they're not cropped. So I will export uncompressed JPEGs. So these are JPEG 100%. Essentially, it's a bitmap, but in JPEG format in a way, or a TIFF in JPEG format, 8-bit, of course. And then that will go into Photos, so Apple Photos. So I create a new library. I don't use my system library, the one that goes to iCloud. So for pretty much every 12 months, I'll create a new Photos library, so for every year. And all the jobs I do in that year will go into this Photos library. I have dozens of Photos libraries. Only one of them, only your system Photos library, can be updated to the cloud. All the rest are just orphaned. They don't touch the cloud, which I don't want these to touch the cloud. These are work ones, and they're just hundreds of thousands of photos. But what it does do, there's a few things. It scans for faces, and Photos has gotten incredibly good at scanning for faces, for animals, for cars. So you can actually say, I want to find all the photos with this specific car in it, and it'll find them, but that's really cool. But it's also archiving. So because I consolidate my photos into that library, so the uncompressed JPEGs are going into that library, not the RAWs. The RAWs will just be backed up on a drive. They have a sidecar file with all the edits, so I can actually open them up on a different computer using someone else's software, and all the edits are still there because of the sidecar file with Canon. And so this workflow has taken me time, but the Photos one was the key, because now I have a library, a single, which is known as a package in Apple World. This package has 100,000 photographs in it that are uncompressed, and it's humongous. And then I can simply put that onto a spinny drive, but then I also have the output of all that. So when I'm finished, and I should do the two things I do in Photos is crop because that doesn't change the quality. But then I have to give the customer something that's not, not uncompressed. So they do get a compressed JPEG. Apple has a really nice JPEG compression. And there's two things. One is the quality, the sharpness, which Apple doesn't do anything to the sharpness. And second is the color. So what kind of color they're going to do. So that's another thing. So the color is really nice. It matches what was coming out of the Canon software with Apple. So they just don't do much. Apple is terrible at editing RAWs. This is also true for Adobe. So a lot of people have moved away from Lightroom into Capture One if they want to go to another software. So that's one thing we're seeing. I personally don't use Capture One. I use Canon's own software, but that's a whole other thing. But so what I've got there at the end of it, I've got all my RAWs sitting in a file, just normal file. They have sidecar files attached to them that has all the edits. And then after the edits are done, but not cropping, the other thing I do in photos is red eye reduction. Apple's red eye reduction is better than anything else. And when you've got I only have one job. This one job that I do every year, it's the only job I ever have red eye problems on. And I know why, but there's no way around it. And it's the only job, and I can just batch edit all of them and do red eye removal. It'll just do them because Apple knows faces, it knows eyes. So the AI and the face detection, that's why their red eye reduction is so good, because it's not just looking for a face. It's just Apple's getting much better and better at looking at faces. And then that's the archive. So that's my JPEG archive, is that. And then I have another archive, which is the export. So the export is the lower file size for the photos. So I essentially have 3 copies of the RAW, the uncompressed JPEG, uncropped, and if anyone asks me, hey, can I get the uncropped versions of these photos? So when people ask you for RAWs, I simply just give them the uncompressed JPEGs. They don't know any different. They see them as they're 60 megabytes, 50, and so they don't understand the difference between RAW, which they won't be able to open unless they have certain software, and an uncompressed JPEG, which will be about the same size, uncropped, because they may want to crop. And this is quite common for people when I do 21st birthdays. Because they go, oh, I know my auntie was at the back of that and she was sculling a beer, but you cropped it out because you focused on the photo. But I really wanted that shot of my auntie sculling a beer. And so I just send through, if they ask them, I'll send through all the uncropped JPEGs rather than sending the RAWs. Because the RAWs are not edited for light, color, that kind of stuff. But all the JPEGs, they're fully edited. They're just not cropped.
So I'm curious, Carl, how did all this come about? Were you in a forum, or was this pure just out of
this is pure me.
Forced yourself? Yeah, pure you.
So I would do jobs. So I would do a job I was using a few. I played with Lightroom for 2 months. I went no, because Adobe don't make cameras, therefore they can't fix a raw photograph very well, and the colors are always weird. So you have to kind of do your own kind of LUTs and kind of fix the color. With Canon, it's perfect. So if you use Canon software knows what camera you shot it on. It knows the sensor. It knows its curve. There's a whole other thing with curves. I won't get into that. But yeah, so I figured that out because of just doing things again and again and again. And I found, one, I've got to be economical with my time, because it takes about, I would say, about 1 minute total for selecting, editing, cropping, red eye reduction. But as I said, there's only one job.
And you're on a Mac or PC, and what's your hard drive?
Mac. Yeah, so I'm on a Mac Mini, and the Mac Mini is perfectly fine for this. The exporting from RAW to uncompressed JPEG, and it doesn't matter if it's compressed or uncompressed, it still takes the same amount of time to create the file. That's the slowest part, but that's because it does it as a batch.
Because our friend TJ Asher asked a question on a Saturday show, and he was saying, what computer should I get? And I think it was Alex that was saying, get one with plenty of storage. And when I went into online, just kind of helping spend other people's money, there was one with an M1 that had an 8 terabyte drive, which was significantly cheaper than the M4 that he was looking at. But I was like, man, there's something to opening up photos on an 8 terabyte internal drive. If you can just, it's like a Gatling gun at that point on some of those files, because it is raw, just throughput. The computer processor can handle it. It's just, can that drive keep up with trying to open up 1,000 pictures or however many it is that you're trying to
that's right. So I've just found this workflow really good for me. The other quick one I'll say is, very quickly, I do a very particular job every year, and I have done it for 7 years now. And this is one of the few jobs where I have 7 or 8 video cameras plus me doing photo. I have one assistant moving, one human on a video camera. The rest are all, I have 4 AI cameras now, and I have 4 static cameras. My 4 AI cameras are amazing.
What are they?
Yeah, so Canon made an AI camera. So you may know the N300, the N500, and you can spend $1,200 on auto tracking. That was made by MIT. So the MIT guys did another camera with Canon, which has just been discontinued. So this camera is perfect for what I do. I don't need it to be crazy. I just need it to be artificial intelligence. And all it does is track faces, and either does video or photos. I like to put it in photo mode. So it's just taken hundreds of photos, but it's tracking 360-degree tracking, pan tilt. It's quite an amazing camera made by the guys at MIT, and Canon does the hardware, but the software is done by MIT, the same as the N500, N700. The extra software you can purchase for that. So I have 4 of these cameras. I have 4 static cameras, and then I have one person human on a camera, on a 4K camera, and then me doing photography. So I'm doing the stills. Wow. So we have like almost 10 cameras going, but I've done this job now for 7 years. And I remember the first time I did it, I had one video camera that was static, one video camera that was manned, and me doing photos. So it's that I've actually looked at that particular job because we do it in the same location too. So nothing changes. Literally the X I put on the stage for this event is the exact same spot every year to say, hey, stand here so I can get your photos. And like, it's the exact same every year. The only thing that changes is me, and what equipment I bring and how I use that equipment and how I edit it. So it's quite fascinating because I can actually see that the only differences in all these now is just me. But yeah, that's what I noticed too.
All right, Alex.
I'm a big fan of tearing things apart and putting them back together because, you always make it more efficient. You always think of some other thing that you could have done. I try to stack up what I want to change when I do it. But I'm a big, when I used to build a lot of 3D models, so my job for a couple of years was just to build 3D models. And the way I would build them is I would look at an object, kind of look at it for a second, and then I'd hack something out, just hack it out, build stuff up, build some rounds, do some stuff, and I just work on it for sometimes half a day, just kind of just working through some of the bits and pieces. And when I was done with that model, I deleted it. I don't mean I put it another version. I mean, I deleted it. I didn't want to ever have the temptation to go back, and I'd start again. And this time I would carefully start to build all the bits and pieces, knowing what I had done before. And I would go through this process of building that out. And when I was done with that, I deleted it again, and then I built the model. And that's how I ended up with models that were perfectly. I mean, it wasn't just that they looked nice, but they were built correctly. Like the things, the geometry was where it needed to be. It was scaled to where it needed to be. Everything moved the way it needed to move. But the key is being willing to throw all that stuff away all the time. And I got into that habit because that's the way I dealt with code when I was a kid. I don't know how I got into it. I don't remember if someone told me to do it that way. But I would throw my code away all the time. Like I just trash it. I just throw it away and rewrite it all the time. And I think when I think back on it now, I think it was because I wrote a game when I was like 13 on my Apple IIe, and for whatever reason, I set the floppy drive. Remember those 8-inch floppy drives? And it was a floppy drive, and I think I set it. It wasn't 8. I think it was 5.5. Anyway, I set it
5.25
somewhere, 5.25 or whatever, and I set it set it on the something behind me, and it happened to be on newspapers, and my brother burned the newspapers to start a fire and just burned up my game. And when I got over feeling sick about the fact that I had lost, a couple weeks of work, I sat down and rewrote it in a day. Just rewrote the whole thing, and it was way better than it was before. And I think that that's where my pattern began of like, oh, I should just throw things away all the time. And so I'm very, what I would call I'm not very past oriented. Like I want to get rid of stuff get the past out of my future as fast as possible. And so I have really focused on that. And I do that when we had with Pixel Core, we would tear, and even with 090, we tear our systems apart all the time. Like I don't try to keep them in one place. Tear them apart, put them back together, tear them apart, put them back together. Because when you do that in that process, you get better. And like the edit that I've done with in Memo Live, I know that he was talking about Memo Live probably today. I've rebuilt that thing 5 or 6 times, like the way I do it. And I just rip it all apart knowing what I know now. Because otherwise you also end up with these kind of ghosts in the machine because, things have changed in the operating system. Things have changed how it worked. And now it doesn't quite do what it was supposed to do. And you're better off just, and not like retooling it, just throw it away, put it back together, and you get better at using it. There's so many things you get better at.
On that note, one of the interesting things that occurred during that session today, Robert Sabadity chimed in and said, hey, and then just throw this auto center feature on there. And so Alexander did that. And it was funny to hear at the end where his processor had creeped up quite a bit because he had this Apple auto tracking thing that would center people up in the boxes. And Robert Sabadity was like, I don't have that problem because I'm running on a Mac Studio that's like a super high-end machine and I'm at 30%, whereas Alexander was at 70%. So it was one of those learnings where other people were in the meeting that said, here's how I do it, but then here's how you do it. So it's one of those things where it's like you can push the envelope, but how far can you push it? And is it worth spending the extra money to get that, little bit? So really cool. Let's jump one more question. Let's get this Talalik one.
So from Talak Lopez Waterman from North Carolina, he's asked, wondering if there is a video adapter, Blackmagic or otherwise, but not an ATEM or deck link with 2 SDI inputs that can build a simple picture-in-picture feed for VOR or Zoom, etc. In other words, USB-C input into a computer, trying to avoid OBS.
What do you got, Carl?
So I know he says not to use, so what you're looking for is a DVE. You want to do picture-in-picture, you need a box that does DVE. A simple box that does DVE that has at least 2 SDIs, has USB-C out, is going to be the SDI ATEM Mini. So this is called the SDI Vanilla. So the SDI Vanilla, it doesn't have any streaming, but it does do, obviously it does USB-C out, so it does a webcam out, what we call it. It has a DVE built in, of course. So I can't think of any box that could do what you're asking any better or cheaper than this. So this is, the SDI Vanilla. That's what this is called. This kind of replaced the HDMI Vanilla, which is now being discontinued. Yes, it's the reason why it's cheap because it doesn't have the streaming engine. It doesn't have the ability to record to USB. But this would be the one because it has the DVE and has a very, it's only a single DVE, of course, but it's very manual in how you can set up that DVE, and the fact that you can just save it and recall it. So because ATEMs you can recall settings. So I know you said not an ATEM Mini, but I can't think of anything with SDI inputs. HD, I'm guessing you're saying HD. If we're going to 4K, then I'd probably go up to a 1ME 4K, maybe a 2ME 4K, because DVE is what we're looking at. AJA will have similar boxes, but they're going to be a lot more expensive. So under $400, that would be my suggestion. I know you said no ATEM, but hopefully you didn't mean that particular ATEM, because I know you don't want to convert from SDI to HDMI. I think that's what you were assuming, but there is one that doesn't.
Alex.
I'm going to agree with Carl. I couldn't. I looked. I searched. I asked ChatGPT. I asked Google. I asked, looking for all the is there something I'm missing that I can look at? And the SDI version of the 4-channel ATEM Mini is the least expensive, most capable thing you can buy that will do what you're asking.
There you go. And with that, we're going to move on to our content picks. And Alex, you are up first.
I'm actually gonna choose Isha, who we saw live, because it's just a really fun. It's poppy. It's a little poppy. You feel like some of the stuff could have been almost Taylor Swift. My daughter gets me into these bands, so she's and the funny thing is that they the roundabout way, I was like, how do you even find these bands? How do you find these artists? And Pinterest, someone in Pinterest, there was a picture of the artist, and then people talked about how much they liked it, and then my daughter listened to it on Apple Music, and then listened to it, and then learned every word to every song, and then put it in my calendar. This is how my daughter manages me. She put the concert in my calendar like 6 weeks ago, and so then at the beginning of the week she reminded me, like, are we going to this concert? I'm like, yeah, it's been in the thing. So I really enjoyed it. It's a really good singer-songwriter. It was a really good band. If you see Isha playing, I would highly recommend it. It's a really, really fun show. So that's my recommendation.
And it's always cool when you're sitting there too going, I could bring this to the world. I mean, we have these tools in front of us, and I know you're like me, where you're just like, we can broadcast this.
I did. Here's the funny thing is I got on Instagram. I haven't posted on Instagram for a long 5 years. Like I just, I keep on thinking, I don't know what I want to post. I don't know what to post. I don't know what I should post. And I'm not traveling. I used to only use Instagram when I traveled. And so I would just post things about, so if you look at my old Instagram, it's just under my name there. I got Instagram the day, that's my MO is I go out and get every social media thing the day of. So I get my name and then I forget about it. anyway, so you'll see a bunch of pictures of my travel in India and all over the world, but then I stopped because I wasn't traveling. And so it wasn't my thing. And so I decided with this, there's another band called Silk Road, which was opened for Isha, which I thought was really good. They're really good as well. Incredible guitar player. I'm just going to start posting some concert stuff, just posting more and not make it mean anything. I think that because it kind of grew up, it was like, it's not a lot. I don't have a lot of followers, but I have more than 10, so then I was like, oh, I'm broadcasting, not like I think about, it all happened kind of by accident that I got a couple thousand people following. So I'm just, but I'm going to start. So I posted the concert, but then I reached out. I also realized that I should build up my following in Instagram so that when I reach out to artists going, hey, would you like to do something? I've got more than 10 followers. And so anyway, they haven't responded yet. She responded to my daughter, of course, but not to me. So because I'm the technical term for me is a cotton top.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is that term? Cotton top.
Cotton top. I need to get a shirt that just says cotton top, resident cotton top.
Well, you need one that says free as the straw that drank 1,000 milkshakes too, and say, hey, I can do this for you for free. I can amplify your reach.
Exactly. My whole thing is I got a studio, I got a space, I got a place to go, I got people.
4K, HDR, spatial, 120 frames a second on a big screen.
There's kind of this thing that we talk about flipping what we call flipping the paperclip, which is that you get a band that's playing for 150 people or an artist is playing for 150 people and you do a great job and just make them look amazing. And that's going to lead to a band that, plays for 500 people. And then that leads to a band that plays for 5,000 people, because it's hard for bands to understand, like, who should they trust? Like, who actually knows how to do video and record and stream and everything else? Because a lot of people, if someone walks up to you and says, I'll stream your band for free, there's always like, where's the catch? And the catch is we're training people and we're trying to figure out the business model. That's the thing. So anyway, so you got to get over that and say, hey, we can actually produce something. Look at what we've done already. So it's the game. Yeah,
just like this show, there is no catch. It's just we're all learning. We're all pushing the ball down the road. And it's just like we're here to learn and share our knowledge. So that's what I love about it. Well, Alex, thanks for joining us. I know you got to jump. And we've got Tony, Sky, Carl. I know you guys got some content picks. Sky, you got one?
So Carl, the one I'm going to choose. The one I'm going to choose is, so these are 3 YouTube channels. Now, they are separate YouTube channels, but they're linked in a way because these guys are all friends. They all do a similar job or the same job. They're very geographically different. One's on the East Coast of the United States in New York, one's in the Bay Area on the West Coast, and one's in Melbourne here in Australia. And they're all gaffers. Now, these gaffers what they do is they essentially talk about their jobs, and they kind of cover a different thing. So gaffering gear. So this is Andrew. He's in Melbourne. He does more gear reviews, but also talks about tips if you're on set. He's especially talking to young gaffers because he hires young gaffers to help him on his shoots. So he will do generally commercial shoots. He will do generally small stuff. So pretty much right in line with what a lot of people in office hours community do, he does. So small commercials, small music videos, so what we call industrial films or corporate shoots, that kind of stuff. He's not doing a lot of high big features. The next person in that particular list is going to be Meet the Gaffer. So this is the one in San Francisco. So Luke is interesting because he does, in the Bay Area, there's not a lot of feature films, but he will do, again, commercials. He'll do a lot of corporate videos, a lot of industrials, some documentary stuff as well. But what he does, he will take you on set. And usually at the end of the day before they pack up, he will sit down and explain exactly all the lights, why they put all the lights there, the limitations. He will sit down with the cinematographer and the director and go through all the different lighting setups. And these are all the budgets that are kind of in office hours kind of space. So these are definitely budgets that we can afford in office hours and using equipment. Some of the older videos, of course, go back to Kino Flows and Tungsten, but these guys have become pretty much the face of LEDs at the moment. And then the third one is the Gaffer Salon. So this is a New York-based one. He does some gear reviews. He also talks a bit more philosophical about being a gaffer, how to charge, how to treat they don't step on each other's toes because they're all friends and they all watch each other's videos. So they leave the technical reviews to Andrew in in Melbourne, and kind of the on-set experience they will leave to Luke in San Francisco. So the gaffer salons are a little bit different, is he'll do a little bit more interviews. He will do some reviews, but he'll do some basic reviews. And he'll talk about the change in being a gaffer, going from tungsten, going from Kino flows, going to LED, using less power, being able to use house power rather than bring generators for every gig. So they talk about this. So if you're interested in lighting, interested in grip, they talk a lot about grip gear as well. So light stands, flags. So even though it's called gaffer, they do cover grip pretty much equally because they work hand in hand. And a lot of the jobs they work on, they may have what's called a 2 and 2. So there's 2 people in the grip section, and there's 2 people in the gaffer section, which means essentially what they call a key grip and a best boy. So these 2 people have to, because you need 2 people to put up some stuff, of course, like a menace arm or something. And then over in the gaffer world, there'll be the gaffer and his assistant, which would also be called a best boy technically on set. And so you sometimes need 2 because you need 2 people to put up some big heavy lights, like a 5K back in the day. So, and that's the kind of the largest sets they'll be on. Sometimes these guys will rock up and they are the grip gaffer. That's how small the shoot is. The shoot is like a crew of 5 people, including the producer, director, cinematographer, camera operator, and a grip gaffer. So they are the whole thing. They are the grip, they are the gaffer, they have everything. But these are definitely smaller, maybe 2 people talking in an office kind of shoot, where they have all morning to set up. So they don't really need a large crew. And obviously the camera operator and the DP are going to help out if they need a 2-person to put up a menace arm or something. But if you watch these videos carefully, and they've been going now for quite a few years, you'll actually see a lot of techniques that are kind of in the realm of the stuff that we do here in office hours. So you can translate them very quickly to something much larger, like theatrical films, of course, or television series, which I do talk about a little bit as well. But especially for our own setups here, how you can do your own setup in your own office hours kind of space, but also small industrial corporate gigs you may be doing, which may just be a podcast, 2 people talking, that kind of stuff. So I find these guys a wealth of knowledge because it's the little things they tell you, like do not use black C-stands. And there's a very good reason. I'm a photographer, so I do use black stands because I'm a photographer. If I was doing video work, I would never use black stands. And they tell you why you don't want to ever use a black stand if you are a gaffer or a grip for hire. And they will explain it to you very quickly. So those kind of little things that they tell you are really valuable to understanding why certain people last in that kind of job. Because grip gaffer is a bit of a tough job, because if you do one mistake, you're never going to be hired again. Word will go out. You know, if one light falls or whatever, or someone puts cables in the wrong spot and an executive producer has tripped over your cable, it's not the executive producer's fault. It's going to be your fault. So they give you this real world kind of backing. So these videos are great, and you can just search on their videos for anything you're interested in, of course. But yeah, so this is really good for essentially, even if you're just setting up your little home studio, really good as well.
Yeah, I think I've stumbled upon some of their videos. Brett Bai, who's Alex's friend, who's done a ton of these type of videos like 10 years ago. It was always cool I was always excited to watch his videos because there was these insider lingo, you know, what's a teeny or a tweeny, or, you know, it's just like these terms that when you get on set, it's helpful if you can remember, you know, what's a Z47, give me some dirt, you know, it's like all these little lingo bits that you can pick up by watching these videos. But I'm pretty sure they're the ones that did a video on the F22 aperture light that Alexandra and I have, that it was helpful to see how they mount that thing and how they use not quite a menace arm, but something like it to get over the top of heads, because it's not super heavy. But yeah, great pick. Sky, you got one?
I do, and I'm going to continue on with PJ Ace Films on YouTube, and he's the gentleman that did the commercial that got airtime on national television, and again is using all of the current creative tools and is becoming a thing. And it is inevitable that if it's cheaper, it doesn't necessarily have to be better, but it's going to go on air anyway. So I mean, we see a lot of stuff that, but it's not. What I appreciated about him was that he said it's not easy, and that was what I valued. His 15 years of working in the industry, recognizing, yes, these are new tools. I remember when we went from HD $120, you know, a piece of tape was $120, and now it went to mini HD, and then it went to files. And so again, we're just iterating at a faster pace, and the creativity and the wisdom is what he's really promoting. So that's That's what I valued about him. Plus, I did buy tickets to San Michelle. I'm going to go see Chicago band live in August.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be fun.
Man, I'm gonna have to join you on that one.
Yeah,
It sounds like a cool one. I've never seen a concert out there here. It's a wonderful venue.
We went and saw one of the American crooners last year, and it's a fun place to sit on the grass for 2.5 hours and drink wine.
Sweet. All right, Tony Mobley, what do you got?
What I have tonight is Free Show, which is a pro presenter alternative. And for houses of worship or small businesses that use Pro Presenter, this is a free platform that allows you to do presentations, particularly for house of worship. It looks amazing. Interesting enough, my guess, and I really hadn't planned on doing a plug for Conversation with Tony Mobley, but this gentleman is going to be on this coming Wednesday, and he is Gary B. Jr., who is a person who does tons and tons of free show training. And his trainings are like 15 minutes or less. Most of them that I've looked at are about 8 minutes or so. So I wanted to talk about Free Show as my content for tonight. And also, I'm going to have someone on Conversation with Tony Mobley this Wednesday who is using it, doing training for people, and his whole thing is about sharing the information for people to have access to this. And so I think Pro Presenter is fantastic, but it is really cost prohibitive for most people, particularly small houses of worship. So this is an alternative. So Free Show is my recommendation for tonight. And also come and check out Gary B. Jr. this coming Wednesday on Conversation with Tony Mobley.
Sweet. And what time is the show?
That's 8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern. Cool. And then subscribe. You should drop a link in the chat so that everybody can see, or you can just Google Conversations with Tony Mobley. And congrats on, I don't know, over 100 shows now. That blows my mind. You're putting in the reps, brother. You're putting in the reps. I want to get as smooth as you one of these days. I'm putting in my reps right now. Grant's giving me an opportunity to step on the stage.
This community is largely, just speaking of tonight, looking at how I look. This is about this community. So again, thank you, office hours.
It's amazing we got this virtual stage. Well, my pick's going to be one that is an unlisted video that's just our Cinegear coverage that we did. I didn't push this out to the world to see, but there's a lot of learnings. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and it's 3 hours long, but just scrub through it and you'll probably pick out a few things that you go, oh, that's interesting that they did it that way. Because anytime that we do these types of shows and events, there's always a learning, and you could see where, we go into one of the studios and or the stages, and we start to drop bandwidth. So you could hear us talking about, oh, we're only getting like 300 kilobits per second. So we had 3 modems, but it's just these things of, okay, they're out in the heat. Okay, they're using multiple modems. Okay, they're using an ATEM switcher. So all these little things, again, you pick up, and this wasn't one where we were trying to go hard and get 1,000 views on this. This was just one where we wanted to bring the show to those that couldn't be there. Thankfully, Omar, part of the community, newer member, is into doing this kind of thing where he was in that county, so he was just like, I'll just dash over there, Anaheim to or Orange County to Universal Studios wasn't that far of a hop. And that's the thing. Some people just said, all right, hey, Robert Green jumped in and said, I'll meet you there. And then next thing you know, we got, who else was there? Raj hopped on, and Raj had helped a couple of years ago. And it's always great to see the members of the community come together and show their skills. Like Raj is just an amazing producer. And one of the things that I learned from that coverage was as we were pushing the cart along and Raj was talking and explaining things, I was like, we never do moves like that where it's a dolly, like really nice, follow, super slow, walk and talk, but it's on a moving cart. We always go with like some kind of handheld, and it's almost too bumpy. And so lessons learned. So I'll put a link to that in the chat. And with that, I wanted to thank the crew, Taylor, Robert, Peter, 1F Jeff, all you guys behind the scenes rocking VizRT, and we also had a couple people running Memo Live. So that's another thing. If you're interested in piping your Memo Live in, get a hold of Taylor, and you can cut this show every Monday evening or morning if you're in Tuesday morning. It's the next day over there, isn't it, Carl?
It's the next day, yes. It's
okay, so
it's almost lunchtime now.
Okay. Yeah, if you're interested in cutting the show, get a hold of Taylor. We can drop your instance in, give it permission to record, and basically what that does is it gives you the opportunity to cut the show. And so I've been watching somebody cut the show. I think it was Alexander. So thanks again for the questions. Appreciate all the producers that asked questions during this show, and we will catch you again next week. Thanks.